All right, let's further unpack this with SABC News US correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease, who joins us now. Sherwin, very good afternoon to you. So what more do we know about the AfriForum solidarity visit to the White House yesterday?
Our knowledge, Alicia, is limited to what AfriForum and Solidarity, the Solidarity Movement, is telling us. They've been posting information online as it pertains to this visit to the White House. Of course, they choreographed this before they left South Africa. They told us that they were, planning this visit. I'll tell you who's part of the delegation. The Solidarity Movement's delegation is led by the chairperson, Flip Base. It includes Kali Kriel, the AfriForum CEO, Dr. Dirk Herman, the Solidarity CEO, and Jaco Kleinans, who is head of international liaison at the Solidarity Movement. The Solidarity Movement, they say, is grateful to the Trump administration and its willingness to provide assistance to Afrikaners. The delegation handed over a memorandum, as you alluded to, Alicia, to the Trump administration. This memorandum, they say, indicates that the interests of South African citizens, including Afrikaners, can best be promoted through intensified pressure on ANC leaders for pushing so-called radical policies, rather than ending South Africa's participation in the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, which they say could punish the country as a whole. The delegation further expressed serious concerns about the consequences of the Expropriation Act, the racial laws, which they refer to, calls for violence against Afrikaners, and attacks on Afrikaans schools, such as the Bella Act. During the meeting, Dr. Herman handed over a report which highlights the wide scope of what they believe is discriminatory racial legislation in South Africa. Quote, the current diplomatic crisis was caused by the African National Congress. This is not just a minor diplomatic understanding, according to the delegation that visited the White House. So the big question then becomes, Alicia, who did they meet with? Did they meet with President Trump? Did they meet with the Vice President? They are playing their cards very close to their chest. I reached out to Kali Kriel this morning, who's in Washington, D.C. He sent me a voice note. Let's watch and listen to what he said.
Just with regard to our program and who we will see, we have decided not to make it known beforehand, as we know that there are people that would want to bring a counter strategy. Also, with regard to the White House, I think it's the White House's prerogative if they want to announce who we met with. But thank you so much. We will continue also to, on social media, as well as in media statements, send something out as we go along.
So, Alicia, very difficult to get sort of an indication from the delegation as to who they'll be meeting. I also said they will be meeting with members of Congress. Which members of Congress? They didn't want to reveal their program to us. But if you look at the picture that they posted online of their delegation on the White House precinct, they're not inside the White House. They're adjacent, in an adjacent building, which is called the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, which tends to house lower-level officials from the administration, still senior officials, but perhaps not really entering the inner sanctum of the White House, which perhaps would have brought them closer to the Oval Office and perhaps a meeting with President Trump. That I don't think has happened. Obviously, some lower-level officials in the administration, but as I say, AfriForum not giving us their cards as to who they'll be engaging with here.
Absolutely, Sherwin. I mean, according to that voice note you received there, Kali Kriel says he does not want to make it known in case any counter, of course, a revolutionary or counter narrative actually emerges from that. Right here in South Africa, I'm actually looking at the platform X, and they're currently trending as number 7 with that picture that you've just showed us. Desmond Biles, they're saying arrest them for treason. Afrikaner nationalists in the USA right now calling for the throw of the SA government. So now, Sherwin, has there been any reaction then to this visit, particularly from the South African embassy out in Washington?
I'll answer that in the question, but just to the reaction you were talking about online, right, to this visit, calling it treasonous, it isn't treasonous, right? And I think that is the beauty of South Africa's constitution. That is the beauty of our democracy that allows a group like this to air their views, to state their position, and not be, bound and arrested and where you throw away the key. I reached out to Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool this morning. Ambassador Rasool is, of course, our ambassador in Washington. I said, what's your reaction? Has there been any reaction to this visit? This is what he told me. He presumes it was a lower level official meeting at the White House and not sort of the senior leadership of the White House. He suspects it's lower level. He says this was not an official delegation, Alicia, whose visit was facilitated by the South African embassy. Often delegations from South Africa, be that government or otherwise, tend to work with the embassy when they come for visits in the United States. That didn't happen here. I'm not going to speculate as to why that might be, but I'm sure people can, piece that together. He also says it's better to have different delegations come and explain themselves. It allows South African diplomats and the government to respond then to those claims comprehensively. He also told me, Alicia, that he continues to engage with members of Congress. He described the members he's been engaging with. He called them the hard MAGA members, the hard Make America Great Again members who are, in the president's camp. He also said they're engaging with mainstream Republicans and, quote, to quote him, different shades of Democrats. So he said he's engaging. He was on the Hill, on Capitol Hill yesterday. He told me he has a number of meetings today. So they are seeking to counter the narrative that is being put forward by groups like AfriForum, by groups like Solidarity. And he says that work is continuing. It's painstaking, but it is ongoing. He said what this moment has done for South Africa, it has created a renewed curiosity about South Africa, but I think he still has his work cut out here. As you well know, Alicia, AGOA is up for renegotiation and renewal by, I believe, September this year. And I think a lot of political capital now being put in terms of ensuring that South Africa's preferred status is maintained. Of course, we are also waiting for an announcement from the presidency in South Africa as to who will be those special envoys that he will be appointing, really to engage with governments around the world, no less the Republican administration that currently holds the White House in the United States.
And we're currently, of course, undertaking that G20 that is currently happening here in South Africa. Would be interesting to see, Sherwin, when we finally get a scope and a report back as to what exactly, of course, that memorandum that was handed over to the Trump administration actually contains. We're going to, of course, keep checking on you if you have any developments in this regard. We're going to leave it there for now. That is SABC News U.S. correspondent there, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, on AfriForum and Solidarity Movement, having met with representatives of the Trump administration out in Washington. And we do not know at this stage what some of the discussions or what they've actually submitted as part of that memorandum.